I'm not Argentinian, so don't call this an authentic recipe. It's based on a Patagonian restaurant that my wife and I love to go to when we're in Costa Rica. And I've basically eaten there and tasted it and reverse engineered the chimichurri recipe that they use. So you start out with Italian flat leaf parsley and chop it up somewhat fine, not super fine. We're not making a pesto here. Chimichurri is sort of a loose sauce, so you just want to chop it up good, just the leaves. You don't want the stems, so that can get tricky. Sometimes you just have to pull the leaves off one at a time and then chop them up. You'll notice I scrape the board with the back of my knife and scoop at the sharp edge. That way you don't ruin the edge on your knife. Don't want to waste any of those. Get rid of the scraps. You can throw those in a stock if you're cooking a stock that day. Next is garlic. I like a lot of garlic in my chimichurri, so you want to separate the cloves. I think I used 2 or 3 heads today, and so you want to break the cloves apart from the head. And then you want to give them a good whack to peel the skins off the cloves. This garlic gets sticky when you're working with it, so I actually end up washing my hands a lot while I'm working with it, just because it gets sticky and then the paper sticks to you. You also want to nip off, like you saw there, the little root end of the clove, because that's just tough and you don't want that going into the chimichurri. Nip off that little end, and then we're going to crush the garlic. I have this big heavy-duty industrial garlic press because I'm Italian American and we all have big industrial garlic presses. So you crush it through, you scrape it off, push it to the side, put another clove in, keep crushing, and eventually it'll all get crushed through there in a nice fine mince garlic. This is the way you get really the most flavor out of the garlic. It's fresh garlic, and then mincing it, crushing it really just sort of abuses all the cell walls in the garlic and releases all the flavor of that sharp, strong garlic flavor. So if you want milder dishes with garlic, you just leave the cloves whole or slice them, and they're not as strong. Okay, next we want some red pepper flakes. I like my chimichurri spicy. You can put as much or as little in as you want. You'll notice there's no recipe here. You just make it to your taste. That's the way every Argentinian family would do it. So next is extra virgin olive oil, and you're going to need a lot of that. You can see that I buy it in a fair amount. This is, like I said, a fairly loose sauce or relish. So a lot of olive oil, more olive oil. And then just a splash or two of red wine vinegar. Okay, so it's not a salad dressing, but a little bit of vinegar just gives it a nice flavor. So that's it. That wasn't very much yeast. The bottle there has a pourer on it, so it doesn't come out very fast. And then mix it up. Okay, and at this point you can judge whether it needs anything else just by the look and feel of it. I think it needs a little more olive oil and probably a little more pepper flakes, just because. And I'm just putting it in a bottle here, and I'm going to leave it out on the counter until this evening. So you want to make the chimichurri ahead of time. Okay, I made it in the morning before I was going to grill. You can make it the day before. Leave it out for the flavors to meld at room temperature. You can store it in the fridge for quite a while, but if you're gonna serve it, you want to take it out of the fridge and let it come to room temperature, and because the olive oil will solidify. So next, I'm going to cut up a pineapple, and we're going to remove the core here. Use a serrated knife to cut a pineapple because they're tough. And these you can just cut up a pineapple with a knife, but these coring widgets give you the nice round slices that we're used to with the pineapple. So I've grilled pineapple, but I've never grilled it with beef. But I thought I'd try it from this because pineapples always remind me of Costa Rica, because that's where they come from. If you read the label on your supermarket pineapple, you'll see they don't come from Hawaii anymore. They come from Costa Rica. The land is too valuable in Hawaii to be growing many pineapples. So I'm just going to cut this up. Now this pineapple is very ripe, so you can see the rings split. Slightly less ripe pineapple, the rings will stay together. But we're going to break them up to put on skewers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll get all those slices out of there. And the cores leave quite a bit of meat on the skin, so I'm just going to take my knife and basically fillet that off like you would a fish, and that'll give us some crushed pineapple that I can use for something else. So You don't want to waste that. It's perfectly good. Being careful not to cut myself. And the reason I did this on a tray is because you get a lot of juice. You don't want to waste good fresh pineapple juice, so I'll just pour that in with the crushed pineapple. Okay, next we want to prepare the beef. So this was just some nice looking stew meat that I saw at the grocery store. So it might be a little tough, but it's going to be small pieces, and often there's some good tender pieces in a stew meat because it's the trimmings from the butcher's work. Now I'm just sprinkling a little Montreal seasoning on here to get them good and seasoned. Montreal seasoning is my favorite steak seasoning. It's basically salt and pepper and garlic. I think there's a little paprika in there. Get that all smushed around, get the seasoning all over the surface of the beef. And a nice tray to work on. Pineapple. I touched the meat, so I'm not touching the pineapple. It's in the container there. And get some bamboo skewers and start skewering. I start and end with the meat because that holds onto the skewer the best. And then just alternate pineapple chunks and beef. Okay, so like I said, I've never done this particular thing before. So if you do it, that piece is too big. Let's just cut that in half. If you do this, you may find that the pineapple breaks when you stick it on the skewer. So just don't let that bother you. Stick the little pieces on sideways and move on. Do the best you can. Some of it's going to fall off on the grill. That's okay. Just toss it on the plate and keep going. So just fill up the skewers until you're out of meat. Cover this up with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave this out at room temperature for an hour or so. Okay, it won't hurt anything. In fact, it'll give the Montreal seasoning time to penetrate the meat, and the pineapple will actually help tenderize the beef. So pineapple has a lot of pain in it, which is a very strong tenderizer, so it'll make the meat more tender. I stick that in the microwave oven so my dog doesn't get to it, and because it's sterile in there from microwaving things. So now I'm making some marinade to brush over the skewers while it's cooking. It's just hot sauce and water. Very, very simple. Tabasco works really well if you like Tabasco. I didn't have any at home, so I just used that hot sauce. And now it's time to get the charcoal grill going. So you can do these on a gas grill if you want, and I do cook on a gas grill all the time, but I'm going to start some charcoal up in my chimney. I've got a couple of paper towels there and a little cheap vegetable oil. So you just want to dampen the paper towel a little bit, and that'll fuel the starting of the charcoal. So it's like you've basically made a big flat candle at this point. So the paper will act as a wick while the oil burns, and you'll get a flame under there igniting the charcoal for a while. So I find that it takes about 15 minutes to get the charcoal up to temperature. So I'm not going to make you sit here and watch it for 15 minutes, but that's about how long it takes. So it's not quite as fast as a gas grill, but it's not too terrible, and the flavor you get is really very nice. So I'm using lump charcoal here. Lump charcoal burns hotter. This is my original chimney that I made myself out of a coffee can and some screening. So you can make your own if you don't want to spend the money for a chimney. I have bequeathed my homemade charcoal starter to my daughter Michelle, who you probably know from Fleeceable Fridays, and this is a new chimney that I'm using here. So after about 15 minutes, you can see that the coals are good and hot. Look at the flame coming off of that, and they're starting to turn white. So we're ready to grill on these, and the grilling will go very fast. Okay, these skewers will cook in about 10 minutes. That's all it'll take, because the meat is small and the pineapple is small and cooks quickly. So put the grate over top, and let's get some skewers on there. Okay, there are our kebabs. And I'm putting them on from the outside in, because the center of that pile of charcoal is going to be the hottest place. So when you're cooking on a grill, you do have to think about heat management and move the food around as you see where it's cooking faster or slower. We baste those with our hot sauce and water. This won't make them taste spicy, believe it or not. It'll just add a sort of a little layer of flavor to them. I suppose if you wanted them spicy, you would just not dilute it, but I've never tried that. The hot sauce and water trick is one I learned from an old woman who cooks skewers on the street in Costa Rica, so it is very fitting with the theme of this episode. And I spared you the whole 10 minutes and sped this up. And we're done. Pull those off the grill. And I told you might lose a few pineapples. It's okay. No worries. Pura vida, as they say in Costa Rica. It all tastes good. And let's, where am I going to put this? Let's do one more basting, just for good measure. And we'll serve them up. Two skewers really is enough for a meal. For me, my wife eats a skewer and a half. That's enough for her. Hey, don't forget the chimichurri sauce. Look at that fancy labeling. Okay, so I just put a little dish there to put the chimichurri in. Make it easier to manage, and you just put that on your beef. It's great on steak, obviously, and it's also delicious on fresh bread. So there we go. Dinner is served.